You are beautiful. You are powerful. You are worthy. Your crown.
Hi, beautiful. Welcome back to the Kiya Convos podcast. I'm your host, Kate Anwar, and also founder of Kiya Cosmetics. This is the space for all things wellness, self-care, and empowerment. And no one touches on that more than our beautiful guest today, Shanice. Hi, Shanice.
Hi.
Welcome. Thank you so much for coming down. Not coming down, but agreeing to speak with me on the podcast today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So I usually like to kick off by asking the guest to just tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey prior to you before becoming a therapist.
Cool. Well, thank you for having me. It's nice.
You're very welcome.
Worries. My name is Shanice, and my therapy journey started around about 4 years ago now, 4 or 5. And I always knew that I wanted to get into therapy. When I was at uni, I studied psychology, and I thought, once I graduate, it should be kind of smooth sailing, which seems to never be the case. I graduated from uni, so I had to spend a little bit of time looking for courses, etc. But I found a course that was centered around a certain model of CBT, which I really, really liked. And I'll touch on it a bit if you would like in the future. But that kind of kick-started my training, like I say, a few years back. So I'd done some training, and then I was able to start seeing clients and building up my client hours. And then I've been practicing privately for about the last 2 and a bit years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
It's going fast.
It has. I really had to sit down and think, when did I start all of this? Really fast.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. So I just want to put it back slightly because I didn't meet you on the back of therapy. I met you as the curly girl influencer online. So I'm assuming you were doing that while studying therapy. How did that journey come about?
Yeah, so I guess I've always been juggling quite a few things. So when I first started my what's now like a hair and beauty page, essentially hair wellness beauty, I was actually just doing it to share some poetry because I liked writing poetry surrounding mental health, which kind of into what I was doing therapy wise and then my training. And then it kind of branched out more so into the hair side of things because I could see that that's what my audience really liked. And I began to kind of lean into it more. And then once I was qualified, I realized that I really wanted to try and find a way to bring that more onto my platform to be able to share as much as possible. I've grown up kind of witnessing a lot of different mental health struggles in my family. And I really wanted to just be able to become qualified to begin with, and then give as much as I could to people around me, friends, family, strangers. And so I guess that's how it kind of seeped onto my page. My page initially was actually supposed to be poetry. And then people were like, love your hair. And I was like, do you know what? I might as well just share more hair stuff. And it kind of just took a complete turn from there.
Okay. Well, that's a really interesting journey. You mentioned mental health in your family. So I'm assuming that's what birthed the passion initially for you to become a therapist.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So what has the journey looked like within the training and then becoming qualified? What steps did you take for anyone that wants to become a licensed therapist in the future? Yeah. What was the journey like?
Yeah. It was difficult to find a course. I will say that. Initially, I tried to go down a trainee psychological wellbeing practitioner route, which if people are kind of looking into therapy, then they may be aware of that route. I found it really hard. I couldn't get into any of the programs, so I had to look for a private course, which I funded myself. And I literally just found that online. By chance, I think. I don't even know how I came across it. But it consisted of a couple of modules, and I read through everything to make sure I was quite happy with the general sound of things. And then I enrolled, and it was part-time alongside work. So I was studying and then attending the college. I think it was 1 weekend a month, I think. And then that also coincided with COVID. So then it went virtual, which was strange because my training initially I started working with clients face to face. But then when I qualified, I was just seeing people online. Since qualifying, I've actually been virtual. I hope that answered the question. I'm not sure.
I mean, yeah, we're just getting a flavour for what your journey looks like and what you did. So that should give people an idea. No, perfect. So are there any areas that you particularly focus on when it comes to therapy? Because I've noticed a few common themes on your page that I'll touch on, but I just wanted to hear it from you first.
Yeah. I really like working with anxiety and depression. I find depression is a scary thing to work with, but I think it's a really important thing to work with. So those are the two areas that I kind of lean into quite a bit. I often have clients that come to me with anger issues and things like that. So quite different in that sense.
It's so annoying.
That's okay. But I'm on my page. I mainly share like wellness, self-care type things because I feel like they're more easy to digest. On social media, people are just scrolling and they want that quick, easy to digest content. I find that's what I tend to focus on over there.
Okay. Now I find it interesting that you said anxiety and depression. Was there any particular reason why you were drawn to those topics, or was it just by chance?
I think because I'd struggled with both myself and I'd seen a lot of that around me, loved ones, friends, family, etc. So it just felt like something that was quite close to home. And then once I'd done the training and I learned the tools and the model, I found that it aligned really well with those things and I could really see how it could be used in practice to help with those problems, which are really, really prevalent problems as well.
Yeah. Not wanting you to go deeper than feels comfortable, but what did the anxiety and depression look like for your own personal journey? I know you mentioned a few things around your pregnancy and like postpartum, but if you want to touch on some of it, that'll be helpful.
Yeah, that's the more recent side of it. Because I struggled with those things several years back when I was transitioning, like out of university and trying to find my feet, I guess, in the world. But more recently, so my son is 1.5, and when I was pregnant, I didn't realize that there was such a thing as prenatal depression. I'd only heard of like postpartum depression. So that was a really interesting revelation, and I had to have my own therapy to kind of work through that. But what that looked like for me was a kind of a numbness. It wasn't kind of crying and the typical associations that people make with depression, and anxiety as well. It wasn't even, I didn't recognize that I was, worrying or I felt uncertain about something, if that makes sense. It was all very deep within and below the surface. But my therapist helped me to realize that my mom was actually the person that said, I don't think, you're yourself at the moment. Wonder if that's something you should look into. So for me it was a lot of numbness. I didn't feel very excited about the pregnancy. I couldn't really imagine giving birth. Like, I was reading all the books and I was like, okay, so I'll get the knowledge, but I almost didn't trust that my body would get me there. It was a really strange and overwhelming experience at the time, especially because so many people are saying, oh, you must be so excited. It's like, this is really uncomfortable.
Okay. And how did you were you able to work through that while she was still pregnant, or did that sort of come about afterwards?
Yeah, so I worked through it whilst I was still pregnant, but I wouldn't say that I got to a stage where I was, completely at peace with everything and excited, shall we say. Yeah. Or let's say I wasn't excited, but I got to a place where I was more at peace with things.
Yes.
So, when my son was born, that's when things changed. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I haven't been excited until this point. But it was more so a shift in the way that I viewed my current experience and accepting that was okay, rather than changing my current experience to one that aligns with other people's, excitement, etc.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Thank you for sharing. I didn't want it to be like too deep, but yeah. Thank you. So one of the things I've seen that you've touched on your page is a lot about like relationships and intimacy. So first of all, very helpful because not a lot of people talk about that in terms of like the actual, I know you touched on physical, but like that emotional intimacy, I don't see people really talk about that online as much. So what made you decide to share about that?
Yes, I'm kind of inspired. I would never share exact details of clients, of course, because of confidentiality, but I'm inspired by the clients that I work with and some of the problems that they are faced with day to day. And that kind of pushes me to think, do you know what? There must be more people out there experiencing this. So maybe if I open up the space to kind of talk about that, then it could help people. So that's literally where that stemmed from is client sessions.
Oh, okay, perfect. So share with us some key things that you've noticed, maybe not that people have issues with with regards to intimacy in relationships, but yes, also some common themes that you've noticed people have issues with, and just some tools that people can use to overcome it as well.
Okay. And are you like more so focused here on the emotional intimacy or the physical?
Both, whichever one you think is more common, or we can touch on both.
Okay. I would say that people come to me more with the emotional side of it. And I don't know if that's because the physical side of it is more uncomfortable for people to bring.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that that's more common, but that's more what I'm presented with. And yeah, emotional intimacy, it comes down to being vulnerable, to being open to being vulnerable with our partners, with our loved ones, because you can have intimacy in friendships. It's not just about relationships. It's just about human connection, closeness. And humans are by nature really social beings. So it's kind of inbuilt in us to want to form connections, to want to be understood, etc. And there tends to be problems with intimacy when we don't feel connected, when we don't feel safe enough to be vulnerable, or when we don't feel understood. That seems to be a really, really big thing that people come to me like, in order for me to build closeness with this person, they have to understand me. And that's a kind of complex thing because they don't have to for you to have closeness. You don't have to be 100% understood. It helps, but you can be close. You can have that intimacy without having to be understood 100%. I'm not sure if we ever understand each other 100%.
Yeah.
And I guess as long as there's that mutual respect and safe space, then you can form intimate connections.
Yeah, that's so true because I've been married for almost 13 years and neither of us are the same as we were when we first got married. First of all, we both changed so much.
Of course.
I maybe understood him at a point and then he changed and I didn't understand and I got to understand him and then he changed again. So I think that's the same in, as you mentioned, any type of relationship, platonic or, the other type of relationship that I can't remember the name for.
I get you.
Right now, but that's really interesting. So what do you think causes that? I guess it's just innate to kind of feel that someone doesn't understand you, or is it something that there are things that we do to a person that highlights to them that, oh, okay, no, you don't understand who I am, or you're not making me feel safe? Is there anything that's common that we may not realize we're doing?
So what we do to trigger other people to not be understood or safe?
Yeah.
Oh, that's an interesting question. I guess most of the time people tell me about how they are not being understood and feel safe. But you're on the other side of it, which, that's an interesting perspective. I guess it would be in really little things. And the thing is, we are not the same person now as we are in like an hour's time in terms of the way we respond to a situation could be so different, literally minute to minute. Like on so many different factors, how much sleep we've had, if we're hungry, you know, our hormone balances, time of the month, like so many different things impact it, that it's hard to pinpoint what we can do to prevent kind of making somebody feel misunderstood, because there's a lot of pressure putting on yourself in that sense. But little things we could do that could make somebody feel misunderstood is we may not be actively listening to what they're saying. So we might be listening with an intent to fix or an intent to respond rather than to hear and to actually understand what they're saying. We may have our own kind of preconceptions or ideas that just kind of cause us to kind of, again, like make assumptions, or again, like we don't try to understand, but not that that's, you know, not that we should go around blaming ourselves for that, but it can be interesting to kind of pay attention to how you are when you're trying to understand someone. You know, are you trying to understand them, or are you trying to find a solution? Are you trying to find logic to give them an answer? You know, it's, complicated. It's
very complicated. And then I guess for the person that is feeling misunderstood, what would you suggest be the best response to that? Because I guess a lot of us would get defensive and shut down, but that doesn't help anyone. So what would be the best response?
Yeah. I would say a good thing to do that I often say to clients is to take a step back and have time. Like often we think, right, something's happening right now, and so I need to respond in this moment.
Yeah.
And like you can take a moment, you can say to the person, you know, can we just take a second? I just need to think. Or, you know, that hasn't landed very well. I just need a moment. Try and pause, gather your thoughts and understand what felt uncomfortable in that moment so that you can communicate it better. But also to just recognize that that defensive feeling that comes on immediately is so normal. It's just human. We don't being not understood at all. We think, somebody doesn't understand us. Our body kind of sees that as a threat. And so naturally we're going to feel uncomfortable. We're going to feel defensive, like, you know, oh my God, this is fight or flight. Like this person doesn't get me. What am I going to do next? And that's what that defensiveness is. So just an acceptance of that will also help you allow it to pass by faster. So,
Oh, perfect. Great. Thanks for I feel like even myself, I can tend to get very defensive if I feel misunderstood. So pause. I usually like to get to the bottom of it now, but okay. Next time I'll pause and take time. Okay. So now, if you want to touch on some sexual intimacy tips, or common things that you found, obviously not getting into clients but do you think there are any common themes with that?
Yes. So often, what I've noticed so far, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more than this, but often what I've noticed is that people who are struggling with the physical side of intimacy often, not all of them, but the clients that I have seen, have had a history of abuse of some sort. Really understandable that if you've had some sort of abuse, that the associations that you're going to have with sex, with physical intimacy, are going to be difficult, basically, for want of a word. And there is something that, so in my training, we did modules of different things like eating disorders, sexual dysfunction, things like that. So I'm not like a specialist in that field. One of the things that we touched on was an activity called Sensate Focus. And the idea is that, and I really liked it because it's very practical stuff. So it's like, and people like that. They like to be able to have something tangible to go away and use and do. And with Sensate Focus, the idea is that you build up to sexual intimacy, starting with its smallest forms, like its smallest part. Begin with, there are different stages. You start with you and your partner doing non-sexual touch, literally like the arm, the hands, etc. And the idea isn't to try and But the idea isn't to try and please, which helps to take the pressure away from that, because often we feel a lot of pressure to perform, both men and women, and with sex. So it removes that, and it gets you used to touch without there being that pressure of what it's leading to, what's happening next in that stage. And for quite a few stages, no sex is allowed, no kissing is allowed, no genital touching is allowed. It's just touch of in a non-sexual way.
How long does that phase? Is it very, very different depending on the situation, or are there like general time frames?
As in like how long, like in minutes or
Each phase? Oh, okay. Yeah, in each phase.
Oh, okay, yeah. So each phase will last, I think it's about 30 minutes or so. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's around that amount of time. But it, again, like, it doesn't have to have a certain time limit, because the idea is that this should feel within your kind of comfort zone. It shouldn't be too far outside the comfort zone. So, if it's going to feel like a really difficult task, 5 to 10 minutes is fine. That's more than enough.
So they would just like sit and just like touch each other, or
yes, lie down, feel comfortable. Yeah, get comfortable. Try to remove, because of course initially it feels really awkward, it feels really uncomfortable, and that's why you're doing the exercise, right? To try and shift that. So you want to be in a comfortable position that's, feels relaxed. It feels you can try to begin to at least connect with that relaxed version of yourself, that relaxed side of yourself, and have no pressure to it. Okay. There's more like instructions online about, because I think that there's different parts where you don't provide feedback either. So it's not like you're touching your partner is saying, "Oh yeah, that's great," or anything. They are non-responsive practically unless something is uncomfortable or hurts.
Okay, sure.
And then it literally builds up.
So what's phase 2?
Yeah, like I want all the stuff.
Yeah.
So phase 2, it will gradually begin to involve things like genital touching. So of course, beforehand, you are just doing very non-sexual touching or non-genital touching, like legs, arms, hands, stuff like that. So gradually you would build up to include that. Gradually you would build up to allowing kissing. Gradually you would build up to penetration. So it goes through those stages of increasing the sexual nature of what's happening. And equally, as the stages increase, the partner begins to provide feedback as well.
Oh. That is so funny. Okay, not funny, but that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But I love the idea that it's so practical. Like, it's something you can look up online and be like to your partner, look, we're doing this. I want to feel more comfortable with sex, with intimacy, with all of that stuff. And so we're doing this. And it feels like it's you read the stages online and you know exactly what to do. Like, I love the practical side of it.
Okay. So what is so I'm assuming you've suggested it to clients before. What is the general feedback that you've got from clients doing it? Is it usually difficult to start, or is it just, I'm so glad we did this?
Yeah. Yeah. So I've only had a couple of people provide feedback. Some people have done it, and then, because I work with EAPs, so I may not, and that's employee assistance program, so people's workplace insurance. So sometimes I may not see them again. They may come in, have like the odd session and then go. So I won't get to know how it went, which, I would like to have more feedback to know how well it goes. But yeah, I've heard that it is really uncomfortable in the beginning. However, it's really helpful in the long term. And the partner who doesn't kind of have the intimacy issues is normally quite, from what I've heard, is normally quite, grateful that they've had this, because it allows them in a way that they were struggling to get before, basically. Just to be able to understand their partner on that level.
Yeah. And I guess connect and things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's so interesting. Oh, I've never heard of that before. Is it something you recommend to most couples, or only if just something to, and not exactly switch it up, but get closer together, even if you're not necessarily having intimacy issues, but just another way of connecting.
Yeah. So I don't work with couples, but I recommend it to the individual.
Okay, yeah.
Struggling. Yeah. So if they are struggling, they feel like there's distance, or they are longing for that connection and they're not quite managing to communicate that to their partner, because often what happens is we kind of feel like, oh my gosh, I don't want to just say to my partner, you're not giving me enough sex, or you're not pleasing me, because that's going to upset them, it's going to offend them, and so I'm just going to keep it all to myself. And often that will come into the therapy room, and people will feel almost like ashamed, like, I feel so bad that I have this need. And it's like, well, no, you want closeness. Like, this is humanness. It comes down to that. And so I'll recommend it in times like that, when people are like, something's missing, or I'm not feeling connected to my partner. I'm not happy with the intimacy, or my partner doesn't feel comfortable initiating, things like that. I will suggest that as a way to kind of build that intimacy, build that closeness.
Yeah. I'm not sure how much you've necessarily researched into this yourself, but I know there's a lot of talk online recently about, I guess, women who have traditionally not been either satisfied sexually in relationships, or not really understanding their bodies, or just that there's been a lot more conversation around that topic. So is that something you found yourself with sessions or your research that you've done?
I haven't actually had many clients bringing that to sessions. I have had clients who are wanting to explore their sexuality more, but not necessarily the pleasure side of it like that. Yeah.
Oh, so what's that?
Yeah, because I guess like women like being satisfied and being able to communicate that it's about pleasure, like. And yeah, that's not something that I've actually had many clients come to me about. It's more about connection with their partner, as opposed to, I guess, with yourself.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Learn something new.
Do that, and then next week I'll get a client. I'll be like, okay.
That is really good. So we've touched on emotional intimacy, sexual intimacy. And then one of the other things I wanted you to just briefly touch on is setting boundaries as well with yourself, because I've seen you've spoken about that quite a bit online as well. Healthy boundaries. Is that something, because I see it spoken about online again, it's a line of discourse that's gone around, but what does it really mean to set a boundary for yourself?
Okay. So setting a boundary is about first recognizing what you are comfortable with and what you are not comfortable with, and what you are willing to tolerate versus what you're not willing to tolerate.
Yeah.
And when we set a boundary, all we're doing is saying, look, that is not something that I'm comfortable with, and it's not something that I'm willing to tolerate. Said person may not respect that boundary, but then you will decide what you're going to do with that information. So, you may decide, right, well, that's a no from me. You kind of step away from that person, or you may decide to try again and be like, you know what, let me try and communicate this again in a few weeks' time or whatever, or when the situation pops up again, to try and make it clear that this is a boundary for me.
Yeah. Okay. And then what about boundaries? So when you set that boundary, I guess I'm trying to ask, because let me just double check my note. You said, oh no, I'm not thinking of boundaries. I'm thinking about, self-forgiveness. There was something that you linked the two and I can't remember now. I'm so sorry. I'm
going to try and remember too.
No, that's fine. Okay. So boundaries, but off the back of that, let's just touch on self-forgiveness because I remember.
We can come back to that.
I'm so sorry. I should have written it a bit clearer. But I know you've also touched on self-forgiveness.
Yeah.
And that resonated with me as well, because I feel like a lot of the time we focus on forgiving others. You can't move forward if you haven't forgiven, etc. But that self-forgiveness, I think, is a lot deeper, because there's so many things we can hold on to that we do, or mistakes that we make that have an effect on ourselves.
Yeah.
But where it's like there's no physical person to look at and say, they did this to me, so, but I forgive them. It's a lot more difficult to forgive yourself. So, what have you found with that?
Yeah.
Or what is the easiest way to forgive yourself, if there is one?
Yeah. The easiest way. That's something clients always say. What's the easiest way for me to fix this?
Yeah.
It's very, very common. It's a very, very common problem that people have in kind of holding ourselves to a higher standard than we hold anybody else. Yeah. And being like, I can forgive this person, I can forgive that person. But if I done that, oh my gosh, no, because I should know better. I should be better. I should do better. And it's all these shoulds. There's something called a demand, which is very rigid. It's irrational. It's not consistent with reality. It feels like it, but it doesn't make any sense. It's not grounded in anything, like I say, like logical. We would just prefer not to make errors, to fail, etc. But we don't have to. Nobody has to. If we really had to, if it was really true that we should always do better, we just would. There would just be no instances of people messing up, saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, having to apologize. And a big thing about, or a big thing when you're trying to forgive yourself is acknowledging the fact that you are just human. Like, you are not different to anybody in that sense. So if said person is able to have your forgiveness, why don't you deserve it?
Wow.
You literally don't need to be better than anybody in that sense. You shouldn't do better. You should do as good as you can with what you have at the time.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That was so deep. That sounds like something I want written down so I can look at. Yeah, that was really good. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. I'm being blinded, but I'm trying my best. Every question, it's like it comes. Yeah. No.
The sun loves you.
Okay. Oh gosh, it's okay. Thank you so much. No, I've loved this. We've done intimacy, emotionally, and then sexually. And then we've done boundaries. I'm so upset that I've forgotten the link between the boundaries and self-forgiveness. But I love the way you beautifully summarized self-forgiveness. So I love that. Changing gears slightly, what does self-care look like for you?
Self-care. So you know what? I was thinking about this the other day, and I was thinking that it actually looks different depending on what I need. So I think that self-care is partly about recognizing what you need. Because sometimes I need a hair mask, and I need a face mask, and I need physical care, like pampering, nails, skin, etc. And sometimes I need to mentally fill my cup. Like, I need to read a good book, or I need to strategize about what I want to do over the next month, or decorate the home. Or sometimes I'm like, I need to clear everything out of my space. Like, I need to declutter, I need to get rid of everything and start fresh. So self-care to me looks like all of those things, but it's about being able to say, this is what I need. I'm going to make the time for that.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Making the time is so essential, because sometimes we either do know what we need, but we just don't make the time for it. So, oh, I love that. Okay, so you've had a really stressful day. You've been out and about, meetings. You're just overwhelmed. You get home. What are you doing to relax?
I getting a cup of tea. I'm a drinker.
Love it. Herbal tea or normal, like PG Tips tea?
I like normal PG Tips tea, but this is like a cacao drink because Nicholas, my partner, is all into this kind of, we need to drink healthy things that support us in sick. Okay. So yeah, my first thing is always a tea. Second thing would be get into something cozy, something, more comfortable than what I'm wearing. Take my hair out. And then it can vary. If I've had a really overwhelming day, sometimes I will just want to sit down and not really do. So I'm on some TV and just totally zone out. Other times I want to go and have a shower and like put nice creams on my skin and things like that. Yeah, it varies.
Yeah, no, I love it. Are you a Netflix person? What kind of series are you into?
Yeah, Netflix and YouTube. I'm on YouTube a lot, but yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. This has been so informative. I've loved it. Before we wrap up, what is one key takeaway that you want to leave everyone that is like your key mantra for life that you want to share?
Mantra for life?
I make it sound so dramatic on purpose.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, a takeaway. Yeah, I'll say this. And then you were like, mantra for life. And I was like, I feel the pressure now. In that case, I would say 2. So I'm cheating, but yeah, allow me.
No, that's fine.
Key takeaway is that you are human and you don't need to be anything else. Why should you be perfect? Why should you not make mistakes? Why should you not fail? And if you fail, that's very, very different to being a failure. Failing doesn't make you a failure. You're human. Just remember that. Like, humanness is a really important thing to remember. And then my kind of mantra for life would be positive vibes only is bullshit. Like, don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this, but it's just, please, like, it's really damaging actually for people to get into a mindset of anything that happens in life, I need to find a positive perspective on it, a positive outlook. The amount of times I've had that come and that just has broken them. We don't need to be positive about everything. When bad things happen, it's very healthy to feel bad. We just want to get to a place where we can be more rational about things. You know, rather than thinking that something is out of the world bad, like it's 110% bad. We want to get to a point where we can recognize this is bad, but I can cope with this because I've coped with things before.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Positivity is not everything.
That's interesting because I like to say like positive, but you also have to be a realist. So yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. This has been so good. Apart from me getting blinded, it's been so good. No, I've loved it. Please let everyone know where they can find you online, or if someone's looking for a therapist, where they can find you as well.
Yeah, so Shanice Cox online on Instagram. I don't really post on TikTok, but I'm on them trying to post more. And you'll find me on lots of listing sites like Psychology Today and things like that. But I think if you just Google my name, then you'll see my listing sites come up. So yeah.
She said Google me. Love that. No, I love it. But I'll have the details linked below as well. Thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. If there are any things that stood out to you or any questions you might have, leave them in the comment section below. We'd love to continue the conversation there. Thank you again, Shanice. It's been amazing.
Thank you for me.
No, of course. You're so welcome. So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you did, be sure to thumbs up, subscribe, and share it with a friend as well. We'll be back again next week with another episode of Kiya Convos. Until then, take care, stay blessed, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.